Jesus was a young earth creationist. As soon as you saw the title to this chapter, some of you immediately went into conniptions and started screaming, "Jesus was not a Republican!" And then you went to go have a beer and listen to some secular rock music while wearing your Obama Change t-shirt, because those are things that Billy Graham and your Baptist grandmother would never do. From what I've read on social media, this makes you relevant or hip or something that kids are into these days. Whippersnappers. Always snapping the whipper. The title is an attention getter, but it's not sarcasm or merely clickbait. If you read what Jesus said, it's easy to deduce that he actually was a young earth creationist. While there are many other reasons which will be discussed in the future, the fact that Jesus holds a certain position has always been, for me, a good enough reason to do the same. I can buy a beer-swilling Obama voter being a Christian. I've known Christians who have tattoos, smoke cigarettes, and prefer Star Trek to Star Wars for some reason. But when your position about Jesus is, he was wrong and I'm smarter, then no, you're not a Christian. You, my fine feathered fellow, are a Fruit Loop. Very simply, to show that Jesus was a young earth creationist, we can make use of the two verses in the Bible where Jesus says this. First, in Mark 10, "But from the beginning of the creation, God made them male and female." And then in Matthew, "And he answered and said to them, Have you not read that he who made them at the beginning made them male and female?" To understand this idea, all you need to do is create two timelines, the young earth creation timeline and the old earth creation timeline, and see which one seems to match Jesus' opinion as expressed in those verses. First, draw a line 125 feet long, and somewhere in the first 64th of the first inch, mark the place where God made humans during creation week. This is where, on the young earth creation model, God made them, Adam and Eve, male and female, at the beginning. The rest of the line to the right represents the 6,000-year history of the world since. Now you'll draw the old Earth model. You'll draw the creation of the first humans at the very beginning of a 1-foot line. The distance after represents the 10,000 years of human history, depending on who you ask. If you ask someone who accepts the deep time evolutionary dates, as many old Earth creationists do, you'll find your timeline of human history is actually 100,000 years, which is 10 feet on this timeline, and it looks like this. The collection of colored lines on the far right there is the 6,000 years of biblical and world history presented in the young Earth creation timeline. The difference between the old Earth creation models is maybe 90,000 years for the date of Adam and Eve, if their model even accepts Adam and Eve as being real, and will therefore either be a foot or 10 feet, but on the big, deep time scale, that's not really all that significant, believe it or not. What's more important is when the beginning is. When is the beginning? Well, let's zoom out a little further. This is the timeline of Earth history according to deep time and evolution. The history of all life on Earth takes place in the blue section, but until that green line at the far right, all of it was bacteria, which are not male or female. On this timeline, nothing was made male or female until after that green line, and humans show up inside of that thick white line at the very far right. Having drawn the timeline of human history, about a foot for old Earth creationists or about 10 feet long for evolutionists, we need to add enough time to get to the beginning, the Big Bang. You'll draw a line to represent the time before the first humans, behind that first 1 or 10 foot line, extending to your left for 340 miles. The Big Bang could be somewhere around Indianapolis, Indiana, and the creation of mankind, male and female, would be somewhere in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Going the speed limit, it would take you more than 5 hours to drive from the beginning of creation to the creation of man and woman. But then the rest of human history would be the length of a small dining room or an unusually large shoe. Now take a good look at both lines, the old Earth Big Bang model and the young Earth biblical creation model. Can you see the difference between them? Now look again at what Jesus said. From the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. Which line seems to show God making them, male and female, aka Adam and Eve, at the beginning of creation? Which shows God making them at the end of creation? Which timeline matches what Jesus said? This is a question easy enough for Blue's Clues. For a more detailed look into the many references the New Testament authors and Jesus make to the events in Genesis, see this article by Answers in Genesis called, "Did Bible Authors Believe in a Literal Genesis?" Thanks for sharing, liking, and subscribing, and remember, sinners and saints, Jesus loves you.